Hi, Terry.
Hi, is that Donna?
Yes, it is. We have
Oh,
good
nice to meet you.
night to meet. Yeah, nice to meet you. See you in Hi, person. Terry. Let me turn.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Ooh, got an echo. We have,
Can you hear me okay?
we can hear you fine. And we have one more
Okay.
person on their way, and hopefully, am I playing the PowerPoint?
Yeah, I could probably do it, but if you don't mind putting it up, and then I can just tell you when to move from one slide to another.
Okay, let me do that.
Or I think I know how to do it here, but
Let's see. Hi, Kate. We're just waiting on Lisa.
there you go.
Okay. Is that large enough?
Yeah, I mean yeah, I mean it has slides on the left if you want to make it a slideshow.
Okay.
But
When,
as long as
whenever I
everyone,
do that, I can't, I no longer can see. Kate is laughing because she has tried to help me with this the
oh, you
entire.
just go up to the top there where it says slideshow, and that'll make it bigger.
Right. So you mean right here?
Uh, over to the left there, but yeah, I think that's fine right there.
Right there? Okay.
Yeah, that should be fine as long as everyone can see it.
Is everybody good? I don't have a text from Alice. I had to think of her name. I don't have a text from Alice, but I know she was traveling. So I'm going to assume that she couldn't make it. So, Terry, welcome. Introduce yourself and take it away. We're so glad you're here tonight.
Well, thank you so much. If it gets to be, maybe 5 minutes before my time's up, just let me know because sometimes I talk too much and I want to have time for questions. So I'll try to get through the material here. But
Okay.
it's nice to meet you, Audrey, and of course Donna and Kate and Alfredo. Yeah. So I have great memories from CPE, and it's always a joy to be able to present. And I'm still learning. Been retired now for about 2 years. I was VA chaplain in Fresno for 21 years, and so I gained a lot of knowledge through the veterans that I served during those years. I'm not a veteran, but I certainly have learned a lot from them. And so, um, thank you again for allowing me to come and present. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about moral injury and the veteran and PTSD as well. I'm going to make a distinction between those two things. So, we're just going to jump right into this. And so let's go to the next slide there. You'll see that that's a Korean War memorial stainless steel statue that's in Washington, D.C. And I don't know if any of you have been to the memorials, but I've been there because I've been on honor flights, probably been there about 7 or 8 times. But that is one of the faces to that person. You'll see the eyes, and those eyes have seen things that other eyes have not. And his soul has had to address what those eyes have seen. So I wanted to just start out with that so that you kind of get an idea of the fact that those who have been in battle and have served our country, they have seen things that many of us have not. So let's go on to the next slide. Next slide. There we go. The soul. We have to start out with the soul. And we know that there are 3 dimensions to every human being: the mind, the body, and the soul. And when it comes to the soul, you can't see it. We know that there's a mind because you can look into the brain, and you know that MRIs are done, X-rays are done with other parts of who we are, but you can't do that with the soul. But we are all spiritual beings prior to our birth as designed by God, and a soul exists within each person. You each have a soul. And it's hard to define that at times, but it's a spirit, or it's attached to the divine or to a supernatural power. Much like the sub-unconscious in psychology, you can't see it, you can't prove it, you can't disprove it. It just is. It's difficult to talk about because, once again, words are trying, we place of being that transcends even descriptive words or descriptors. So we begin with trauma, which affects a person on the inside, this part that I'm explaining here that's hard to actually put into words. When we think about veterans, we know that they are in combat, and combat wounds the soul. Then going on to the next slide. Here's a definition of PTSD. Now, we know that PTSD is kind of a household word, and here is just kind of more academic definitions of it, but it's tied to trauma. It's a violation of conscience regarding what a person did, or sometimes what the person did not do, in a morally ambiguous situation under authority in a military system. Another way of putting it is their moral injury surrounds events that transgress deeply held moral beliefs and expectations. Thus, the key precondition for moral injury is an act of transgression, which shatters moral and ethical expectations that are rooted in religious or spiritual beliefs or culture-based, organizational, group-based rules about fairness, the value of life, and so forth. So when veterans go to into the service and find themselves in battle, in many ways, and even those who maybe haven't had a lot of religious background, we know that there's something inside of us that is that tells us what's right and what's wrong. Trauma happens when something or someone
I think Terry is frozen. Yeah, he is. And it sounded to me like he was defining moral injury, not post-traumatic stress disorder, but the slide was post-traumatic stress disorder. Did you all? I know Alfredo did. Did you all get the slides? Okay.
You there?
We lost you for a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. And it seemed like you were giving us a definition of moral injury. Is that right, Terry?
Yeah, okay. I don't know what happened. Something I said that the internet was shaky here, but did you get mostly everything on this slide?
Yes, we did.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one. Moral injury in the eye of the beholder. Moral injury is perceived. In other words, what is a moral injury for one person may not be a moral injury for another. They can two or three veterans can experience the same thing on the battlefield, and one is affected more than the other. Moral injury is based on the veteran's own moral standards, or the details of an event do not determine the moral injury. Moral injury can be an acute injury accompanying a traumatic event, or it can be the result of a chronic assault upon a person's conscience as a result of living in moral tension over a period of time. So, a good example of that, just in general, because some of this that I'm talking about today, you can apply even to general life or to us as people that aren't veterans. But there could be somebody that's having an ongoing affair, or they're embezzling money, or they're doing something that is wrong, and so they're experiencing some of that moral injury inside themselves. Um, Veterans who clearly measure secular military decisions and actions through the eyes of scripture and religious traditions are more be affected by moral injury. In other words, they have, I think, a more sensitive value system, so it can affect them even more so. Trauma is done to us, sin is done by us. That's very important. Just in general, maybe some on this call today, most of us have experienced trauma in life. So this is a good distinction to remember, because sometimes it can get mixed up when we go through trauma that we blame ourselves. So trauma is done to us, sin is done by us. Okay, the next slide. This is important understanding that there's a connection between spirituality and war. War, which is inherently about destroying and killing, is the ultimate irreligious act. We break divine commandments and appropriate divine responsibilities, taking life when we cannot give it back. When in hell and becoming its servant, we most need spiritual and religious teachings for support and practice to guide our actions, to protect and heal our souls, and to bring peace to victims and reconcile with the dead. If any of you want to learn more about the dynamics of war and PTSD and moral injury, this person, Ed Tick, who wrote this, would be a good person to, you could look him up, Google him, you'll see a lot of materials that he's written. Uh, next slide. Just thinking back about that last thing I said there, just the commandment, you shall not kill. That comes to mind. I mean, right away when we're thinking about in someone in the throes of war, that that we we aren't to kill others, but we know that there's a difference when it's defending oneself or defending our country. Some causes of moral injury: acts of betrayal by peers, leaders, or self. Even in the military, it can be leadership or comrades that cause that moral injury, sad to say. Disproportionate violence inflicted on others, death or harm to civilians. I heard story after story about veterans when I was at the VA that were in battle and they ended up blowing up a building or something, and there were children and families in there, and they didn't do it intentionally, but it those things can happen. Violence within military ranks, concealed acts of cowardice, failure to do duty, exposure to body parts, inability to prevent death or suffering. Combat is relatively unique in that a person can be a victim, an observer, an actor, all in the context of war. War for the veteran causes ethical dilemmas or moral conflicts. So these are things that, and I don't know if any of you are veterans, but for me, I'm not a veteran, so I don't know what it feels like. All I can do is listen to the veterans when they share stories, and I just shudder at times when I hear what they've had to go through. And that all has to do with this moral injury that's inside the recesses of our body that we can't see again or we can't fully define, but we know that it's there. Okay, going on to the next slide. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but you can kind of see what happens with when things take place. Like, for instance, on the left there, we see moral intuitions. Uh, like, for instance, the third one there, failed my team. And then the moral thought is, well, I'm weak, I'm incompetent, I should have done this, I didn't do it, and now I'm holding all of this inside, this shame. Um, and like the second one there, you see something that's unfair, unjust, and it was caused by someone else, and you're thinking he crossed a line, and so you have rage inside, and so on and so forth. But you can see that that chart kind of shows the emotions, the thoughts that take place when one has experienced something in the military. Okay, going on to the next one. Red flags. These are areas that kind of help you or help you realize that there's something going on with that moral injury part of us. Forgiveness, self for others. Forgiveness is a big thing within the military culture. Many of them can't forgive themselves, or they don't feel like God can forgive them. There's anger towards self, another person, or God, or a higher power. Another one is guilt and or shame over past behaviors. Loss of faith, meaning, or hope in life. Fear of death, or no longer desiring to live. Many of our veterans experience this. And let me also say that some of these things you're seeing here can be applied to many people. Maybe some of you have even felt this. So again, trauma and even PTSD can be applied to, or moral injury can be applied to the general population going through or having gone through certain situations. Uh, Fear of death, no longer desiring to live. We know that the suicide rate among veterans is very high. Even now, I think that currently about 17 or 18 veterans take their life each day. I mean, that's unbelievable. It used to be 22, and now it's at least it's gone the other way, but about 17 or 18 take their life every day. Next one, belief that God is punishing them, that they're going through this stuff because God is acting on them. Out of control behaviors related to self-medicating. We know that to be paramount among um, our veterans, and that they self-medicate because they don't want to continue to have these feelings inside, or they just don't see a way out, and so they take drugs or alcohol or pills or whatever their vice is, and it is used to themselves of these feelings and emotions that they have inside. Okay, going on to the next one. Or you know what? Stay on this one for a second. Here are some of the symptoms that you'll see in a person. Um, Anger. These are things that can be seen by people, family members or friends, other people. Anger, anxiety, depression, social withdrawal. I've already mentioned it, substance abuse, lack of sleep. These are things that can be observed or seen by others, and the reason for that is there are roots, spiritual roots, even inside that cause that. And it's their identity, could be regret, it could be guilt or shame, unforgiveness, lots of stuff inside that's held in there, the effects of the trauma, all of those things. And so it bears itself out in those symptoms that I just mentioned. So going on, PTSD versus moral injury. This is important. As I said, PTSD is kind of a household term. You know, you mentioned PTSD, and most everybody knows what that is, but not everybody knows what moral injury is. In fact, I remember 20 years ago, I was in front of 30 veterans, and I asked them to raise their hand if they had ever heard the term moral injury, and nobody raised their hands. Now it's different because there's been a lot of education done, and even the general population is understanding it more. And I think as chaplains or people in ministry, that's very important to understand. Moral injury is not the same as a combat wound like PTSD or a TBI, traumatic brain injury, that requires primarily mental health interventions and solutions. So that's why we have all of our psychologists and psychiatrists and social workers at the VA or in lots of hospitals. But moral injury is a unique quality in that the core of the issue is spiritual and moral, requiring religious and spiritual as well as psychological interventions. For me at the VA, it took me probably probably took me at least 7 years, even after becoming full time there, 7 years to really cultivate a relationship with many of the doctors and psychologists, psychiatrists, because they needed to be educated on moral injury, and they realized that the chaplains or our pastors or spiritual leaders are the ones that can handle that, that need to deal with that. So that just opens up a very, very important uh, a realization and understanding that, man, we have, as spiritual leaders, we have a big responsibility, and the medical staff realizes that, or do in time, and so it's up to us to. I always felt as a chaplain, it was up to me to educate the medical staff on these things, and so they know a lot more now than they used to. But lastly, they're forgiving oneself and forgiving others is the key to finding healing for this spiritual wound. As I said, forgiveness is just at the top of the list because moral injury is tied to shame and guilt, or you could say unforgiveness. So that's where you, in your ministry, can have powerful influence in people's lives. Okay, going on to the next one. PTSD is based more on fear and concentrated more in the mental area of a veteran. I kind of alluded to that earlier. It's more in the mental cerebral brain area of a person, whereas moral injury is based more on guilt and shame and therefore affects the spiritual, the soul dimension of a person. And makes it more difficult for some to grasp because we know we can see the brain, with an X-ray or whatever, but the soul part of us is you can't really see that, but we know it's there, and so that's why the spiritual leaders in this world are so important. Going on to the next one. Minimizing moral injury. Veterans who have experienced moral injury may have denied and minimized the injury for years, saying to themselves, this is no big deal compared to other veterans' visible injuries. Like, for instance, a lot of veterans, they hear PTSD, PTSD, and they see what other veterans have gone through, and they kind of minimize the stuff inside that has to do more with moral injury. Moral injury is, in grief counselor terminology, a disenfranchised grief, a grief that's neither socially accepted nor publicly mourned, especially in the military and among veterans. So even in the general population, moral injury is the term for the veteran population, but soul injury is also used a lot, and so they're kind of both of them mean the same thing for the most part. There might be some distinctions when you talk about military, but there are injuries inside because of traumas that we've been through in life, and we know that military have been through tremendous trauma. Grief surrounding moral injury is not understood by many in the world. That's kind of what I was saying. So for you listening to this today, hopefully this will be it might be kind of an eye opener for you to see this, because I think moral injury gets kind of lumped with PTSD and it's not understood clearly, but I want to make sure you understand it more clearly. Okay, going on to the next slide. The veteran, even their service. Hmm. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I think it's the internet's affected here a little bit, but anyway, one's conscience can be injured by morally ambivalent circumstances or actions, or sometimes inaction. Veterans can be haunted by orders they were given and executed that violated their conscience, still dealing with the injury long after being discharged. Okay, going on to the next one. Spiritual therapy and care. Moral injury is associated with guilt, shame, anger at self and others. I've kind of shared that. Guilt is what I did. Shame is who I am. So the distinction is kind of like this. Guilt, what I did, like I killed some other human beings, or I failed. All of us can think about it kind of in this context. We all know that guilt is a is a good thing in that it helps us convict us of wrongdoing or sin. But it turns into shame when it's turned on us by kind of making it who I am. So a distinction would be, instead of saying I killed, I'm a killer. Or instead of saying I failed, I'm a failure. Or instead of saying I did a bad thing, I'm a bad person. So that's the distinction between guilt and shame. And clergy, chaplains, therapists can work to reduce or eliminate inappropriate manufactured emotions. They can work to right size appropriately placed guilt. In other words, uh, kind of keeping guilt where it needs to be instead of moving it to shame, which makes us seem like, we're a, I don't know, we're a walking killer, or we're a walking failure or something like that. And we go through life sometimes feeling some of those emotions. Okay, going on to the next one. Types of guilt. This is an important. False guilt is an emotional and mental distortion of God's standard. And veterans go through this all the time. And I bet if we had time to share our stories, I bet all of us could share something where we've experienced false guilt. I should have done this. If I only could have done this. If I had been whatever. If I had been quicker. If only I were, if, woulda, coulda, shoulda, all of us have, I think, stories like that, but veterans go through that all the time if they could go back in time, but it's really unproductive. I say that if you talk about God or superior being, and then contrary to that, the enemy, whether you want to call it Satan, the enemy Satan, or the devil or whatever, the enemy loves to have us stay in that false guilt. Survivor's guilt. I shouldn't have survived when others died. I've heard that from so many veterans where they had a good buddy that was right next to them and was killed, and that they say that person was a much better human being than I am, and I should have been the one that was killed. And if I had suffered more, others would have suffered less. I feel so ashamed about it, but I can't help thinking I'm so glad I didn't get killed. So there's all those feelings of survivor's guilt. Okay, then going on to the next slide. Qualities for moral injury, caregiving, and therapy. These are important for you as caregivers and as ministers. When we're caring for somebody who's experienced moral injury, it's important to be non-judgmental, to be non-anxious, to be compassionate, to be patient with the struggle that the person's going through, to be transparent, sometimes even sharing some of our own stories, of course, appropriately and with discernment, engaging where they are, and then also having resources available. And of course, those two last ones are so important, listening and praying. Listening is vital. I know that for going through something and they're coming for help, they want to be listened to. And so, and of course, praying for them. Going on the next one. Can you hear me now still?
I hear you now.
Okay, so sorry. I see when it kind of goes when it
It freezes.
stops here. The
Yeah.
okay, we're almost at the end here. Healing in relation to moral injury is taking place among our veterans, and we're seeing transformation. One of the greatest joys for me as a VA chaplain was seeing veterans go through transformation. And I led a group called Reboot Combat Recovery, and we took about over 100 through that course. It was a 12-week course where we talk about the roots of trauma, and then of course all of the things that veterans have gone through and what has brought them to the point where they have uh, injury, moral injury, and how to deal with that. And so I'm going to show you this book. If you can see it up there, it's called Healing What's Hidden by Evan and Jenny Owens. And it's actually a great book for anyone, not just veterans, but they wrote that book because they're the ones that authored Reboot Combat Recovery. But I saw so much transformation in the veterans that took that course. We met each week for about an hour and a half and went through so many things that they could relate to that helped them. And it's a faith-based course, so we could see the spiritual the power of the spiritual part in relation to them. So I think I have one more slide there. Yes, we each have a story to share. Each of you have a story filled with pain and suffering unique to us in that experiences, and reach out to others by entering their pain. And in so doing, you'll be able to connect with those overwhelmed by the injuries they have sustained. And we each have opportunities to give hope. So, like I said, for me, when I was at the VA, that was my greatest joy, is seeing people uh, at least on the right track, or on you're never completely healed, but that you're going in the right direction, and that you're open to healing and being transformed. So I hope I didn't go too long, but I wanted to open it up for questions.
Please just feel free to unmute yourself and jump in.
Hi, Terry. Thanks so much for that. That was really informative and helpful. I am a jail chaplain, and one of the things I think about a lot, and actually why I was hoping we would get a presentation on moral injury, is there's a lot of overlap between the two cultures. There's not the formalized
Yes.
military piece, but we do have street culture, homeless culture, and we have gang culture. And that is very often connected with all sorts of other things that you've mentioned: PTSD, addiction, parents who commit violence or receive violence. And I just wondered if you might speak to a minute, just kind of your thoughts on maybe a couple key areas where they overlap, and then sort of what your experience is of the difference between those two spaces.
Yeah. Um, well, it's interesting because the course that we to three different tracks, and the first one was Reboot Combat Recovery for military, and then it went to um, first responders, like let's see, first responders like firemen, EMTs, police. And then the third track is general trauma, which any could do. So there's three different tracks, so that there is some overlap there, but there's still some distinctiveness depending on where you are in that trauma. So I think one of the areas that probably overlaps with all of them has to do with um, with forgiveness and guilt and shame. And that's a really big one because I think so many people, especially if they've experienced trauma in their lives, they carry like a huge load with them all the time because they haven't released it to God or to the, superior being. They haven't um, experienced a complete freedom in forgiveness and unconditional love and acceptance because they beat themselves up. Maybe they just think they deserve to be beat up or beat themselves up or be beat by other people with their words and maybe physically because of they think that's I don't know that that's gonna that they deserve it, I guess. And that's not the way we weren't designed for that. We were designed to, we all have imperfections and we all experience, different things. Most all of us have experienced some trauma in some way, but I think it's all in how that's where the spiritual part is so important that we have to hand it over to a power that's beyond ourselves. And I think for you in talking about you're talking about people at prison, jail, was it again, or what was? Yeah. Um, they are in there, and I'm sure they are dealing with lots of those things, guilt and shame, and woulda, coulda, shoulda, some of that false guilt. I wish I could go back and do this, but you can't. You have to, you have to say, okay, I can't go back in time. That's wasted energy. And like I said, the enemy would love to just have you wallow in that. But God, in my faith system as a Christian, God in the Christian faith, Christ took all of that on the cross. And I don't know what all your faith backgrounds are, but I think whatever it might be, the forgiveness and being free of letting those things have so much power over us is so important. I don't know if that answers the question, but did that
Yeah,
help?
yeah, it does help. It kind of calls to mind a second question, if I may, if I can ask another question group.
Sure.
You all okay with that? I don't want to hog all the questions, but I have a lot of interest. So at the beginning, you really differentiated between trauma is done to us, sin is done by us. And I'm actually just
Yes.
genuinely curious why you wouldn't say trauma is done by us. Like, why use this word sin? Because, for example, in Christian ideology, where Jesus cleanses sins, maybe there's a lack of accountability that one can kind of get away with. Or if somebody's really in kind of a shame spiral, then this word sin puts a burden on them in a way. So I'm curious why trauma and then sin versus trauma, we receive trauma and we do trauma, or a different way of looking at
Well,
it.
I think I think there could be, well, I suppose if you were driving 120 miles an hour down the highway and you're the one that chose to do that and you get in an accident and it causes trauma in some ways, maybe there's a combination of sin in you and that you helped cause that. But then I'm thinking of I guess, like for instance, being raped. So a woman is raped, and sometimes women even they think that they are that they had something to do with that when it was really done to them. Um, Trauma is so much of the time, and like I said, maybe there's some where there's some overlap, but trauma for the most part, when we go through traumatic experiences, that's done to us. We didn't wake up in the morning and say, I wanna I want to orchestrate some trauma in my life. But there are times when we legitimately, I mean, we consciously, I should say, sin, or we know it's contrary to what God would want us to do. So I guess that's where the statement trauma is done to us and sin is done by us. So I think the statement is to help make it makes that distinction to help us realize that uh, we're going to hurt ourselves more, or that moral injury is going to stay more inside there if we blame ourselves for something that really wasn't our fault. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is sin, we can use the word sin, but in other contexts, we might be able to say like moral harm that I've caused, or something that is like a gap in what is and what should be. Like just this word sin. Can we use another term for that, or is that really kind of what you're saying is the
Yeah, and maybe there is. I think, to be honest with you, part of that came from, it wasn't my own. I think that came from the writers of that book or the course. That was one of the things in the course. And so I got so that I was leading that course, and it was part of the curriculum that it kind of got ingrained. So yeah, I think that, and I think that even the writers, Jenny and Evan, would probably say, yeah, if there might be another way to uh, articulate that, or another way to understand it better. I know some of these things like that, you can break it down so that it's not exactly accurate, but I guess I'm trying to explain it I think they had a purpose in explaining it that way.
Gotcha. Thanks so much for that explanation.
Oh, sure, sure.
I have a question.
Yes.
So we, talked about moral injury, and you talked about it being um, kind of it's personal. It's not a one thing fit all. What causes moral injury to
Yeah.
me may not be considered moral injury to the next chaplain. So, and this is for a chaplain. So my question would be, do you have any advice, or would it be the same approach as the others with the guilt and the shame for the chaplain who feels like they have been, I don't want to say been a victim of being, have experienced moral injury based on something that they had to do because it was their job, but it went totally against what they believe, what they're taught, what they feel, and they did it anyway. So now they're experiencing this moral injury. So what would be your advice to that chaplain?
That's a very, very good point. In fact, moral injury was talked about even through COVID, through those 3 years of COVID. There was just a lot of different dynamics that went on with the medical personnel, and which included chaplains and so on. Um, First of all, I think when somebody I mean, if you heard me share some definition of moral injury. So if a chaplain is feeling those things, nobody should take that away from them and say, well, that's really not moral injury. It's moral injury if you have these feelings inside. So, and like you said, maybe another chaplain went through the same thing or was exposed to the same dynamics or something at a facility or whatever. They might not feel that, but that doesn't take away from your moral injury. So I think that's where, we all need spiritual advisors. We all need therapists at times. Anybody who's in the field, it's healthy to have somebody that you can talk to. I think that it would be important to have somebody that understands what you've been through and why you feel the way you do, so that they can be of help to you. Now, the other person or two people or whatever, they might not feel those same feelings inside, experience it the same way you did, but that doesn't take from what you experienced. And so but you're wise. You're very wise if you seek out help for that. So you wouldn't want to just say, well, they don't feel this way, so I'm not going to get any help, or I'm not going to talk to anybody or minimize it. That would not be right to do that, because it's feeling these emotions. You need to be open to sharing them, and somebody else needs to be open to hearing them.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I wasn't here when you were presenting, but I did review your PowerPoint in the plane. I just arrived from a conference actually, and in the process, I was thinking a lot because I've been reading also a lot about moral injury, and wondering the more broadening aspect of it, and of different locations where we find that in the everyday reality. Like, I just was feeling a sense of guilt, like at the university where I teach, where I really do see minoritized students being suffering injustice, and I'm helpless to help. And I see the detrimental results of those decisions being made. But then you stand there, you just can't do anything. And you know that person who is suffering those consequences as a result of your inability to do anything. Then you feel guilt, that sense of guilt, which becomes also a sense of moral injury, whereas those terms are really allocated. And you find children have in my care recipients where they feel guilt, where they see like the father beating the mother, they are incapable of doing anything, and they see the bruises that occur in that sense. I feel the sense of guilt, and so that in many everyday experiences. And at the same time, my question is this: when you start locating moral injury, because broadly it's located within in veteran communities, always like in combat war and everything linked to PTSD and such. Why is that term not used as broadly? Or is it like defined, they want it as a technical term for particular experience?
Yeah, that's a good, you know, in fact, there's a person, she's a former, I think she was a former nurse at the VA, but she is kind of noted, she's a notable person throughout the country. Her last name's Grassman, Grassman, on soul injury. She, can you still hear me? Okay, we're gonna.
We can hear you now. And we didn't quite catch the name.
Okay, are we back now?
You're back now, and we didn't quite catch the
Okay,
name.
let me, yeah, okay. There's a person, a doctor, I forgot her last name is Grassman, Grassman. SSMAN, and uh, she does seminars on soul injury, which is it's kind of taking what we're talking about here in a broader sense, and it's very good. Uh, because I think the question was before here from, I think it was Alice. Was it Alice? Yeah, talking about I think what you were saying is that, yeah, this is moral injury is more pointed to the community, but soul injury is also a term that's used in a broader sense. And so you might want to on soul injury, which is it's broader, so it would fit more with lots of different situations that people are in. Does that help?
Yeah, but then it dichotomizes mind and soul, because the mind is also impacted, and that's so a moral injury. So if we look at soul, like even your in your PowerPoint talking about that, there's all those intersection, the mind, the body, the soul. What
Yeah.
other term did you use? Mind, body, soul. They're all interconnected, right? So once
Yes, they
now
are.
move it to when you now move it to the realm of soul, you are dichotomizing mind and soul. So you say that and the mind is also impacted by that. So,
Yes, yes,
and that's
yes.
why you said in one of the notes I had, um, the importance of spiritual caregiver working alongside social workers, psychologists, so that there's this holistic care that is happening. And that in itself
Yes.
recognizes the dimension of the body, mind, soul without removing
Yeah,
one and with a
I think I
specific,
moved it over.
right?
Yeah,
that's exact.
yeah.
That's exactly right. I think about it when I worked at the VA that you could have, you could have a psychologist or psychiatrist. You could have a chaplain. You also have chemical dependency uh, person, for the alcoholism and drug addiction. And you might need, a medical doctor for things that are affected, physically. So everybody, all of these people are we back again?
You're back. So you stop with all of these people.
Okay, I was just talking about, I think Alice is talking about holistic care, which is absolutely, yeah, you don't want to leave. I'm kind of talking here about the moral injury, kind of tying it into the spiritual part of a human being, um, which is an important dimension. Uh, but we need to look at the whole person and all of the different aspects, and also professionals that deal with all of these aspects of a human being.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
May I ask another question? I'm sorry to ask plenty.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I think it's a follow-up and something that Kate alluded to. Because the language of sin is very complicated. And once we get there, then we have a lot of people for whom even the language of forgiveness is a little bit, um, some wouldn't buy that language. What about accountability? Like the ability to be accountable for the things we do. How does that tie into um, forgiveness? Because again, one might say, yeah, forgiveness fundamentally releases you first before the other person. But then forgiveness is always heard about, if I forgive, it means the other person is not accountable. And so the person goes about and doing. And how can that be tied into, and what better language though can be used without the Christian syntax, which is very peculiar to the Christian vocabulary that other people will not even the language of soul. The language of soul, to many, they might not even buy into that language. They want a common language that we are using. What kind of
Yeah.
vocabulary that we can have that we're trying to get at the same thing, but with language that is broad enough for people to be able to understand, which is language that is not threatening, language that is not triggers. Are there vocabularies that need to be used that assume a more inclusive audience than it's lot of the things we do is a Christian talk. Mind you, I'm one woman. Don't always say pastor than anything else. Anyway, I'm just kidding. But no, I'm not really kidding. But what kind of language can we use that
Yeah,
invites?
that's
Yeah, that
well, yeah, I
invites.
appreciate that.
Mhm.
Probably it's hard. It's probably hard for me, hard to do for me because of being a Christian, and the power that I see through my own faith. It's harder for me to put it to try to communicate with somebody in more broader language. But I know one thing that helps, like when I was working as a chaplain, and you could say the spiritual part of you. I mean, even I think I only had one person in my whole ministry at the VA that ever said they couldn't grasp any kind of part of them that was spiritual, which I thought was interesting. That's out of thousands of people that I saw. So I think it's pretty safe to say that 99 point whatever percent of people on the face of the earth are able to grasp the word spiritual, that there's a spiritual dimension to every human being. I suppose, like I said, somebody could discount that, but if you were talking to somebody that's can't grasp the word soul or forgiveness, or I don't know. Forgiveness is a pretty universal um, understanding, or act. In the Christian faith, it's not just forgiveness, but repentance. In other words, you don't just say, I feel forgiven, but now I need to change my behavior. And you said accountability. So that we need to be accountable to ourselves if we want to be healthy and if we want to make changes in our life. So it doesn't just stop at forgiveness. We need to be willing to make changes in our life. So the Christian word is repentance, turning around, or an about face actually is what it means. The Greek word metanoia in the Christian sense. Now, if we're talking about it, trying to make it a broader, when we're talking to somebody, I would be challenged by that. I'd have a harder time with that, but I think I'd try to just talk to a person and say, help them, or I would try to find out, do they feel they have a spiritual dimension to them? And then try to get them to tap into that spiritual part of them to heal. So I don't know if that helps, but it would be hard for me to talk about moral injury and the power of healing outside of my Christian faith. You know, like the course I did at the VA was a Christian faith-based course. But there were people in there that weren't Christians, but we tried to make it. We always said we're never forcing anything on anybody, that we want them to understand the concepts that we're talking about, and it seemed to work. I remember we had a person that was Sikh, and she left that course, even though it was more faith-based, Christian faith-based, she gained a tremendous amount from it. So that tells me that the spiritual aspect really made a difference. Well, I don't know if I answered your question, but very well. But I think
That was
I think
helpful. Thank you.
yeah, I think we have to start with every person we talk to, just with, tell me about your spirituality. Tell me about where, tell me about the spiritual part of you as a human being. And it's a good, then when you hear from them where they're at, it'll help you know how to proceed. I think how to go forward.
Well, thank you, Terry. Thank you so much for coming and spending this time with us, especially on this day. We are grateful.
You're so welcome. It was my pleasure.
And we have some additional resources that I'll be sure to share with the group as well. Um, so again, thank you. And this is a great time to take a break right here, everyone. Is that all right? Okay. 10, 15, what do you need?
Okay, you say 15. Okay.
Okay. Then take a 15-minute break. Again, thank you, Terry. And I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. I appreciate you coming and being with us, especially tonight.
Thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the read, so I wasn't there. Sorry that I wasn't able to.
I did share with him that you were traveling too.
Thank you. Thank you. That was so helpful.
Better eat, Kuka. I'll go away.
Donna, were we supposed to fill the form you sent before class, or can be done after class?
I'm getting ready to talk about it right now.
Okay.
So give me just a second till
Okay.
Alfredo and Audrey join us.
Okay, no problem.
I don't know why I have a note that Alfredo missed the verbatim. I know there was one night when it was just the three of us, but we didn't do verbatims that night. Did we? Hmm.
Is one day that I miss a class,
And it was a
that
verbatim?
I send the verbatim to you.
Ah, but you didn't
I just
present the verbatim in
I
class.
just didn't share in the class.
Got it. That's why I have that note. Okay.
I
And I
send
missed
the
the last class I missed, I think was verbatim. I missed the whole sending it and doing it.
mhm. Okay, so that's some of the logistics. We needed to address tonight. So Alfredo, okay, so uh so Alice, so Audrey, what I think you're gonna need to do is the verbatim. And so when we schedule final evaluations tonight, whatever week you don't do the final evaluation, you'll do the verbatim. That'll cover that. And Alfredo, I think since you are going to do the didactic on board certification, even though you shared the verbatim with us, obviously we didn't discuss it in your absence or give you feedback. But since you're going to do that, I'm going to, in my mind, exchange those two. Since you already turned in the verbatim, we'll say the discussion is something we're going to capture in discussing with you the questions for the didactic. That doesn't have to make sense to you. Um, but the long and the short of it is, since you turned it in, let's not worry about yours. And Alan and Audrey will just schedule yours for the alternative, and I'll work backwards to this question for you, Alfredo. So now that you've seen the two questions, are you fine with doing that didactic on the 3rd, or would you rather it be on the 10th? I'm reading your lips, and I think you said the 3rd is fine with you.
The tour is fine with me unless you have something else, we can change it,
No, that would be
right?
you. No, you need to do it. So,
Yes, I need to
so
do.
the third is
Yeah, I
the
believe it's
third
gonna
is
be
fine.
wonderful.
All right, then you're ready. And so, that means you'll do might be helpful to do your final evaluation on the 10th as opposed to the 3rd, so you're not necessarily preparing for both, but that's up to you. And then so that settles that. And the other item is settled. So, you'll do that verbatim, Audrey, on the 10th. And That's perfect. And you'll do your final evaluation, which will seem awkward, but it will be all right on the 3rd. Who else would like to do their final evaluation on the 3rd? Because you're preparing your piece, Alfredo, let me give the option to, do you want to do those 2 things on the 3rd, or would you especially like to not have 2 things that you're working on? You're still on mute. And I would say your answer to that question
Yes.
is about maybe 2 solid paragraphs, or no more than 1 page for each question.
Okay. I could do that for the
So
third.
okay, and so then you'll do your final evaluation on the 10th.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Alice and Kate, final evaluation, do you want to do it on the 3rd or the 10th?
Is it 10 the last day of class?
There is graduation on the 16th, but the 10th is the last day of class.
Okay, I'll do that then.
Okay. So Kate, would you like to do your final evaluation on the 3rd?
I was gonna say it's finals week for me, so it's all just a big tornado, so I'll figure it out.
Wherever it's blowing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, oh, the other logistics is, so I said it to Terry, but I really didn't mean it to Terry. So I had a presenter for moral injury, but they had an honorarium, and the CPE Center of Central California does not pay honorariums to presenters. So we pivoted to a person that Joseph provided, uh, who would come and do it without compensation. But the person that I had sent me some resources, and they're published author in this field. So I'm going to put those together and send them to you, and it includes a video, which I think will be very helpful. I try to get it to you before our last class in case you want to talk about it. But so I'll send that to you. And the form that I sent you, so one of the feedbacks that I've received about my final evaluations is that I do not consistently describe students, as my descriptions of who the students are is not consistent between students. So I may say 5 things about one student, 10 things about another student. And they're like, it really needs to be consistent. So one way to make it consistent, because it's important to me that it be a self-identification. And what I say about the student is what I've drawn from the student's work that they've said about themselves. So I just created a form so that you can self-identify in that form and just fill that out. It says name, but for any educational stuff, I would only use initials, but for your final evaluations, it's going to be your name. It'll be your legal name. So that's what that form is about, an opportunity for you to fill in that information, and then I'll draw all that information into a succinct statement describing each member of our group. And I will use the same order that the form is written in. I literally am just going to take that information and make a couple of sentences with it, and that's how each of your final evaluations will begin. So Audrey, I know you haven't had one yet. So you get a written final evaluation from me. And the first part of it describes you, your group, and the center. And so it says, this is where Audrey did this unit of CPE, and Audrey is, and then there's that information about you. So that's what the form is, my attempt to address and be uniform. And what matters to me, that it's self-disclosure, not just me. saying, okay, this is who they all are. So if you'd fill that out, feel free to give it to me next week or the following week. As long as I have it by the 10th, it'd be great, by the last class. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate. So that's what that was. Alice, that answers your question, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've signed up for our final evaluations. We've confirmed our didactics. Audrey, even though you're going to do your verbatim, I'm going to at least give the PowerPoint. Well, I'm not going to do the PowerPoint. I'll do a handout on spiritual assessment so that you'll have that information if you'd like to look to it in the future. And we may have some time to talk about some of it. So that'll be fine. We'll be able to still not miss that material. And for the didactic, I discussed this with Alfredo. Let me succinctly say it with all of you. I'm going to talk about kind of like from beginning to all the way to the point of the interview when you are applying to be a board certified chaplain. And then Alfredo, who's going to have given us those written answers before, even if we get it the day of, it's fine because it's not going to be that long. We're going to read it. And we're going to talk as if each of us is a member of the committee. So I'll ask Alfredo to go in a breakout room and we will talk as a member of the committee. And I'll show you what members of the committee would be saying. But I want Alfredo to benefit from that. So we're not going to send him away. But in the process, they send the person away. But I want you all to hear how they would talk about your answers. And then you'd come in the room, and that's how they would interview you, by asking those questions. So it'll make perfect sense when we role play it. And hopefully everybody will be a little bit more comfortable about the whole board certification interview process after we have this role play didactic. I think it'll be very beneficial. And Alfredo, your answers to those two questions, make them accurate. Make them accurate to your understanding and who you are. Because with those answers and our feedback, you will have done 2 of your competencies. Okay. All right. Okay. So that's all the logistics we have there. Any questions? Anybody have any questions about anything else we're doing? Today was our final scheduled IS session. And no, it's okay. And no one wanted to talk to me today but Alfredo. We had a good time. And Alice, I think you and I do need to have one more session because we had to make up, but Audrey and Kate, it's totally up to you. If you want to talk to me, you can. But that was our final IS. Okay. All right. And it really is written policy that I am not allowed to talk to students on the phone while they're driving. So that's why. So that's the policy, just so you know. It wasn't that I didn't want to talk to you. I'm not supposed to do it. Yes, Alfredo.
I have a question regarding the final evaluation, the last question, asking
Yes.
for the project. You say in the beginning that we don't have to have any
Ask.
special project.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, because the last question and the final evaluation was that. So I just want to be sure that I
Can you
don't have.
repeat that? I'm sorry, can you repeat that? That we don't have to have
Hers is
what?
different than yours, though. So when you are at level 2, there's a special project, but for this unit, Joseph suspended the special project so that Alice and Alfredo don't have to do a special project. But the final evaluation form that they have to fill out still has the special project listed. Okay. So you don't have to do that. And the only addition is the same as before. I do ask you to share with us your updated list of all of your spiritual care practices that you did in the session, just so we can continue to build our toolkit of spiritual care resources. All right, great question, Alfredo. Thank you. Any other questions? Same as the mid unit, you present it in the way that you would like to present it. You do not have to come in and read from beginning to end. But the parts that you do definitely need to read is the feedback that you have for everyone else. Okay? And anything that you'd like us to give you feedback on. Alice?
You said it was suspended for this unit. I hope it's suspended for the next unit too.
I think it will be. I think
Um,
it's something that's going to be just eliminated, period. But there are not going to
um,
be any complaints about not having it this unit. So it's not gonna,
then they put it back for Kate. So
I
she,
was gonna say, you guys just graduate awesome, and then they'll be like, we don't even need that thing. Look at Alfredo and Alice, please.
you have enough time for Kate, they should put it.
Yeah, I present the
She
special,
would have finished her master's degree. She needs something else to do.
No, I
not gonna
already
do that to
present the
you,
final
Kate.
project for you girls.
Right. And so if there are no logistics, there's nothing else we want to catch up on. I would like us to decide how we'd like to spend the rest of our time together today. I would like, and by the way, thank you for your reflections on the film. As I read each one, I regretted not asking you to send it to each other because your reflections were just wonderful. So I was really blessed to receive everyone's reflection. And then in IS today with Alfredo, we had some opportunity to talk about it. But so I'll do suggest that we spend some time talking about the films, but I really do want to leave it to you. And I had scheduled for us to have an IPG. I also leave that to you. So let's decide how we want to spend the rest of our time today. Don't let Alice be the first person to contribute to what that's going to look like. Kate, jump in quickly.
Kate,
How,
save me.
how would you like to proceed tonight? I'm already clear, Alice, that we're going to end early.
Oh, thank you.
I was already clear we're going to do that.
My brain
Oh,
is incapable of anything.
And
what would you like to talk about tonight? And again, your reflections are so powerful. I really would that we spend a little time talking about some things you got from the film. Thank you, Kate. You at least unmuted.
Yeah, you guys all talk so fast. I have to like interrupt you to get in there. So I'll just hang out, wait till my time. I was gonna say,
I'll
yeah,
give you a
wait.
special project. How to jump in.
Yeah, then I'll jump in. I'll be like, silence everyone, no special projects. Yeah, I was gonna say, I think talking about the films was great, and maybe just to refine it a little to keep to Alice's tight timeline, just of the two we watched, which was the most impactful and why? Because I liked both of mine, but one just like pow really hit me.
I think that's great. I love that format. So Kate has put a proposal on the table that we spend time doing that. Is there anyone who would like IPG time? If so, please know everyone would affirm and welcome an opportunity for anyone who would want to check in. We are not so pressed that we can't receive that. All right, then Kate, may I ask you to start? And let's talk. I wish you could read your paper, but go ahead.
So I watched the Soloist and Dead Man Walking. I really enjoyed both of them. Both of them overlap with the people that I work with a lot. But Dead Man Walking had me really impacted because I feel like not a lot of people talk about that kind of anguish. I don't know. How many of you watched that one? Did anyone? Yeah, it's not really on a
Alice
lot of
said yes.
Oh, Alice, you did? Okay. It's not really on so many people's radar, but I think there were just so many subtle parts to it that I was like, oh, you get it. Oh, you see it. And it actually really made me feel seen as a chaplain. So I think the part for me, I'll read one section that was
the what parts of Sir Helen's journey resonate with your own sense of call. So there was one part where rough summary is there's this guy on death row, and a Catholic nun ends up being his chaplain, and goes from kind of never having done anything like this before to figuring out the prison system and navigating the ups and downs of things that happen when someone's incarcerated, and not just for the person who's incarcerated, but the system around that person, the people around that, and just sort of this gray area, and how she just really dug into her own sense of identity and calling to navigate it so beautifully, even in the yucky stuff. And that's just something I think about a lot, is there's just a lot of yuck in there, and it's always kind of a balancing game. So there's one point where the prisoner is on TV, and lots of people really favor the death penalty, and they want this guy to die. And she goes back home, and people are just making judgments about him right and left. She's aware of what he's being charged with. And she says, "What am I doing with this guy? I must be nuts." And I thought that was such a beautiful framing of this tension, because I can sit in front of a person and be like, I genuinely care, and go somewhere else and be like, holy cow, the world is so damaged by you. Like, where do those two come together? So the way they portrayed that in the film was really impactful. And then there was another scene where she's engaging with him in the jail, and she faints, and they take her out in medical, and she had just told him, I'll be back. I'll be back. And she doesn't come back because she's in medical. So she's like, please tell the guy that this is what happened. This is why I'm not coming back. And they're like, whatever, we'll do it. So she comes back later, like a few days later, and he's so upset. Like, you didn't come back. You promised you'd come back. And that was such an ache for me, because a lot of times people just don't think information is worth passing to these guys. And consistency is such a vital piece of trust in this space that I really felt for her in that. And then there's this one scene where he basically uses kind of like a sexual sort of charisma to engage her. And it's a form of manipulation, a form of testing. But a lot of times what happens in jail is people will use a lot of different ways of testing you before they get down to a core authentic engagement. And so just the way he kind of leaned in his voice, I was like, wow, that's so impactful that they included that in this, because she's a Catholic nun, right? He's very desperate trying these tricks at the end, because he just can. Like, there's no curb on his behavior. And then there's one part that was really significant was they made a joke together, and they just laughed like friends. And then I see that too, like you're in a room with somebody and you're having a conversation and you burst out laughing.
What? Oh, I thought you said something.
Sorry. You burst out laughing, and then it's like you also know the broken thing that's in the world because of what they did. So like you're laughing together about a joke, and you know they took a life. And it's like, how can we even laugh about a joke knowing that like this world is forever different from action? And so, yes, and in the movie there were some crime flashbacks. So she actually started to get flashbacks from what she was hearing him talk about, and the media talk about, and even extended family and people talk about. And that's kind of one of those things that just comes to sometimes these pictures of things you never had a picture of and you don't really want a picture of. They just come and they live there, and they don't even necessarily go away. And then throughout the movie too, whenever she comes up against something really sad, you just see her cry. And that's always one of the things I think is in this role. There's so much to just weep about. It's not just a one piece thing. It's like you see all the broken extensions of
this person and who they touch and who's been touched by them and sort of the harm of the system. And it's like sometimes I feel that weeping across the board. I can talk to the inmate, I can talk to the family, I can talk to the victim, I can talk to the, like, it's everywhere. And it's such a broken system. So those were just some of the points that when I watched the movie, I was very impacted by the fact that someone took time to like really dig into this job and put it on a screen in a way that dealt with that ugliness, but also showed this immense capacity to love someone, even when it makes no sense at all. So that's it. That was what I thought.
Can you say more about you were immensely impacted? Part of what I'm hearing is you felt seen.
Yeah.
Is there any more that you can say about that?
I think probably felt seen for sure. I felt, what's the opposite of lonely? Like in community, because sometimes this is a job you can't really explain to people, right? Like if I have a conversation with someone who's being charged as raping kids, that's not something you talk about with people. It's just something you take and you hold and you receive because that's your job. And maybe you can go to mental health. Usually if it builds up, there's a level where you're like, I got to talk to someone. But this idea that, because like as the story unfolds, you understand a little bit more about guilt and accountability and responsibility. And she still both does her job and cares for him. And I think for me, I felt less lonely seeing that there are other people wrestling with the same things who are still very good at doing the task of chaplaincy in something like this. So yeah, seeing in community, what else? Permission. I felt like it was permissive. It gave me permission to do things like just weep when I need to weep, or even say like a judgmental thing, or I'm crazy. Like sometimes it's like we watch the thing on mental health and I think, oh, I shouldn't use a word like I'm nuts, but then I'm like, I'm nuts. Like, why do I do this? And it plays with that gray area a little bit more. So then I felt glad to have permission to kind of play in the gray area, but not stay there necessarily. Just like borrow it for a minute and then go back to this moral and ethical and spiritual navigation that does feel comfortable and feel right, but sometimes you spin a little bit.
Yeah, that is so helpful. Is there anything you think she did really well as a chaplain, and anything you would have encouraged her to do differently as a chaplain? She had not had CPE.
Yeah, I really thought how she pressed against the system in ways that she could, whether it was the deputies or just she used her role to the maximum that she could use her role. And so, like, even at the end, no one's allowed to touch the guy. She can put a hand on the guy. Even as the chaplain's telling her what she can and can't do, she's like, okay, I get it. And so she always kind of had this little bit of a pushback on his behalf, which I loved. In terms of the extension piece, like maybe what I would say not to do, I think her situation was really unique. I don't know that in my situation I could become as caught up in the family dynamic as she was. She went to their home, she sat on their sofas, she talked with all the people about the people who were killed. So she really kind of played this mediator role. And I think for her, it took a toll in energy. And I think she just had that one person. Her regular job was working with kids. So she had this one prisoner care. But in my role, I think that's like the place where you get swallowed because there's so much need in the system that everyone would use your listening ear if they could.
Do you have any assessment for what might have led her to do that?
I think the impression I got from watching the movie was just her heart was for healing. And something like this, you can never heal a wound like this. So in the movie, basically, this guy's accused of killing two young people about to get married. And it's a very violent, gruesome death. And the movie kind of explores, did he do it? Did he not do it? The movie winds around through that. And in the process of that, she engages with both him and with the parents whose kids were both found literally brutally murdered. And so that piece of it, yeah, I think for her, by balancing all the pieces, she brought healing in a really beautiful way. And in that situation, it was really the only thing that could have moved things forward, but it's not really a scalable model.
Hmm. Okay.
It would be if we all did that in church. If our
Right, right,
flipped to do that, it would be amazing. But
right. That's very helpful. I picked that film because when I knew I had to teach, I was like, well, it's likely that I'm gonna have somebody because I figured since there were two people, and my concern was that it would be too Hollywood. And I had like three films, and of the three, I said this one
it's the one.
is the one.
Yeah, I will say I had to stop it about 4 times. I could not watch the whole thing through. It just would get too much inside. And then I pause and wait a couple hours, or it took me probably 2 days to work through the whole thing because it's intense for sure.
It needs a stronger warning. Thank you. Thank you, Kate. Alice, did you have any feedback for Kate? You saw that film as well. I would love for you two to exchange your reflections with one another.
I think the with my brain, I think the thing I just want to add quickly, Kate, I'm going to exchange it with you. I would like to see your feedback on that too. Um, First of all, I've never seen Susan Sheridan. To begin with, I didn't watch this film before. So these two people I really have always loved, Susan Sheridan and Shin Payne, in together in the movie. It was very interesting to watch both of them. And I think I echo a lot of what Kate is saying, but I want to just draw on and then that's why the most fascinating was the correlations, that many correlations with the work of a chaplain. In I could see with Susan that in the beginning she's very in the amateur. What do you say that in English? She really doesn't have the experience. She gets into this job. And then she gets this Matthew, who is an arrogant, misogynistic, masculinity, whatever you can call that, for someone who really basically in the beginning was very mean. Though she was there's a sense of discomfort in the beginning. You would think she's not coming back because there's all this pushback that is there. But that is one thing, she still comes back. And one thing that for me I was very touched is how, like what you say, the posture of a chaplain. You will see that she has this amazing ability of eye contact. I don't know, Kate, if you notice that. That she would lean forward, it's eye contact, and this without interrupting, even irrespective of the language being used, she doesn't interrupt. She really does the chaplain work of listening. Yes. One would say that you get a sense of over-identification, but that's beside the point. But those thread of a chaplain, you could really see that she doesn't react defensively, but you could also feel by the body language that this woman, there's a lot of sense of discomfort and that she gets, but she's still coming back, keep coming back. And even there's also the sense of institutional pushback. But the one thing I really like is that she keep coming back. You really see her sense of justice. You really see her concern to be there, present with Matthew, played by Shin Payne. But she doesn't. This again, it might be my read or my observation. Kate, tell me if you did that. You would use there's still sense of she's not trying to excuse anything or try to defend anything as is what Matthew does is okay. She's just being a quote unquote chaplain or a visitor in that sense, visiting Matthew and listening to him, playing that role without necessarily okaying what is done. So as a chaplain, again, I'm just pushing on the chaplain thing that you could see the yeah, anyway. I'm not in the best way. Yeah.
That was very clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing though, I would say in behind, that is why they say that I love the fact that she persisted coming to see Matthew. Because even though you see in the beginning, Shin Payne or Matthew character is very defensive and blames nearly everybody, but behind that facade, there's that moment where you sense, okay, his childhood was not the best, and that he has experienced a childhood of poverty and other elements of the childhood that is impacting his character. Again, it's not excusing the murder charge or the reason why he's in prison, but you can tell that and you begin to see that in reality, people a lot of time that when you see someone is so defensive, um, so hard, all that facade, there's some hurting, there's some pain behind that is some sort of I don't know the language to use in this sense. And I felt there's a sense of empathy for this character though, because for me in the beginning, I just didn't like Matthew's character. I just didn't like the way that he talked to Sister Ellen. I just didn't like the way he responded in period. But as the film is going on, you begin to sense that there's something that is triggering, or there's something in his childhood that causes that trauma that leads to the person he becomes in the end. Yeah.
You use the language, Alice, that you could just you say you see that as the film goes on, you see that, you sort of make it a generalization.
Mm-hmm.
I want to offer that is a skill that chaplains acquire,
Mm-hmm.
or a gift they fine tune in their training.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone does not see humanity when looking at something ugly.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to affirm that, and that it's not a given that would be perceived. In fact, in systems, it is almost, you have to be intentional
Mm-hmm.
to perceive it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Audrey.
Yeah.
Alfreda. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying that is really a good one for chaplain, that particular film. So I'm grateful that you chose it, because I had not watched. I've heard it talked about a lot, but I had not watched it before. There's this phrase that she uses. Anyway, I can't really remember now. Anyway, but it's a good one that you chose for chaplains, and I think we can learn a lot. And I think not having chaplain training, even if you have chaplain training, you still go through that trajectory of let me just try different things. I fail, I don't do it right, but the consistency of doing it, like Sister Ellen, keep coming back and keep coming back. And you could see that the progression of her learning the skills, that presence that chaplaincy is all about, is not something that was in the beginning. It's something that develops throughout by the persistence of coming back with in the midst of all the pushbacks she gets, pushback by institutional pushback, all the criticism, but also pushback by Matthew. And so I really love it that you chose that because it is you can only fine tune skills as you keep doing it and doing it. So I really love the fact that you chose that.
Do
Both
you think
movies, yeah.
do you think she changed her behavior any as the film went on and she kept coming back?
Right, right. I think that again, her character from the beginning to the end is different. You can really see progression there. You can see in the end, it's like I will be here with you. Right? That was beautiful. That in the beginning you sense discomfort. Even though she kept coming back, there was a sense of discomfort. Towards the end, you can find you don't have, again, maybe my read, Kate, you watched it, it might be my read, but I'll say it's somebody who has developed some kind of relationship, but it's a relationship with boundaries though, right? Because it doesn't collapse the fact that you can get over identification to the point where you forget to realize the horror of the story. But the horror of the story is still there, held in tension, but you find a lot of empathy towards the end. That's how I experienced it.
Yeah, I love how you say that, and I might say it, tell me if you don't think it's right, but you see her grow into her character, and you
Mhm.
also see this world she starts in that she has a world view, and
Mhm.
it just gets like heavier and darker. And she
Mhm.
navigates it, and there's love that affirms her in it, and there's ways it's navigated, but you see in just the smallest ways the weight of knowing like
Mhm.
this awfulness changes a person. So she's for the better, but she'll never be the same in the world
Oh,
she was
no,
before.
right. I wish she was not a nun because nuns is expected that you keep coming back, you keep doing that. I wanted to see her as a layperson who sees whether that layperson will stay. Right? I said none is expected. As one who have been 15 years in none, I do know it's just expected. It's your job. You keep doing it. That's what they call the vow of obedience. You keep doing that. At some point I'm like, I just wish she wasn't a nun. Let me see the how that character progression look like when you go there. Basically racist, misogynistic towards you, whether you stay or you run away. So at some point I'm like, I just wish she was not a nun. Like to see the real person, because being a nun, there's some tag to it, and some expectation that regardless she'll keep going back. Anyway, yeah. But
What was
that's
your
just
second film?
what is that?
What was the second film you?
The second film I chose.
Yes.
What is that? Dead Man Walking, and what is that on? The Soloist.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just making sure you had one without a none. Okay.
I know I did have one without a none.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you both. Very insightful. Very insightful.
Yeah. I just want to thank both of you for my goodness, your rendition of that movie that I did not choose. And it was a great thing for me that I didn't. Where I was at that time, in those couple of weeks in my life, I would probably still be under the cover somewhere.
That's
So,
wisdom.
yeah. And I don't even know why I didn't choose it, but Sounds like it was a good movie, and I might want to try to look at it later. But I kind of jumped in right here because um, Alice, as you were saying, you just wish, like if she wasn't a nun. And so then I just started thinking about the calling, of the chaplain. And so the two movies I chose was the documentary about chaplains and then the soloist. And the soloist was, hands down like the greatest. Like, oh my goodness, I can't even. I have so much. I don't even know. I think I got it into 3 pages. And I look. No way is this only a 3 page, you know. But that was so good. But the documentary on the chaplains is what had the most impact on me as far as how I see a chaplain. I just feel like my lens has just expanded, so wide. I think I counted 27, either I counted it or somebody said it in the documentary or something, but 27 different organizations, institutions, uh, places of employment, assignments, titles where chaplains work. And so with all of that, you can't just define a chaplain. You can't put a chaplain in a box. And as I was reading it, I was saying it's a calling. And I was thinking about that nun, um, Alice, that you said, that's why you go back. That's why you can't, it's a calling that you have accepted. And as I was looking at and just hearing and listening with that documentary about the different the different callings of the different chaplains in different places, even the man, and this was the most eye opener for me because I'm from California. My husband is from the South. My best friend is from the South. But this Tyson chicken plant, that's just a huge thing in the South. I just had never really heard of it, paid attention to it until COVID happened. And they were closing all the plants, and the staff from the people from the plant were dying, and just looking at how serious they take the role of a chaplain for the Tyson chicken plant. And I'm thinking to myself, the chickens don't need chaplains, you know. So this is so for the Tyson Chicken Company, they valued their employees so much that they had a whole system of chaplains of how they took care of their spiritual needs. And so while the chaplain at the Tyson chicken plant could be not necessarily, we say it's a chaplain. You come alongside, you listen, but those chaplains had the opportunity to actually pastor the staff at the chicken plant. And the staff not only looked forward to it, but they needed it. It fed them, it kept them going, and it showed the benefits of that chaplain in their life at work showed itself during COVID. And that's where they were able to really look at their system and what's happening here. How come the Tyson chicken plant, over here is continuing to thrive, or that, they have systems in place and they're doing this and they're doing that. And you got this same big plant over here is just crumbling apart. And actually people are now losing their jobs and quitting and, becoming even more devastated. And it was one of the chaplains that talked about how they came together for the Tyson chicken plant. The people weren't sick. So for me, the chaplain is about, there's some sick people who just got some bad news, who need someone to just help them, to just listen, to not necessarily give them an answer to their problem. But in this particular situation and environment and in at the plant, they wanted someone who's going to help them to come up with the resolution or a solution or come back in 2 days. How is that going? How is it working out? What can we do different? And so when I looked at that, it just expanded my whole mindset on the chaplain. There's no mindset on the chaplain. It's just wherever you are placed in a position to meet the needs of whoever it is you're serving. And so for me, and I thought the first thing I need to know is who am I serving? Even, before I accept the assignment or accept the job, you can't just apply for a job because it says it has an opening for a chaplain. It's a calling. And so you have to be able to be committed to that call and to be able to keep going, to keep showing up and to keep going back. Um, yeah. And so in that movie, I saw Kate, you know, I saw Alice. It's like as I'm going through, it was this one chaplain who was with the Assemblies of God, and they wanted her to marry someone who was LGBTQ or whatever. She just could not do it. And so for me, I had to, just caused me to like open myself up, like to expand, who I am. Don't judge her. That's who she is. So that's why when the chaplain talked about moral injury, it would have been moral injury for them to make her do that. I would not have had a problem with it. But for her, the conviction was so strong that she was ready to quit. She was nervous. Her anxiety had raised. I mean, it was her response um, was very detrimental to her. And it started spilling over into her family and what she was taking home. And but they had a group of chaplains, and I just loved how they just rallied around one another and was able to, well, who would like to do it? I'd like to do it. Oh, we could ask somebody else to do it, and no one will get their feelings hurt or whatever. I don't think we have those kind of settings. I'm looking at the setting where I am right now at Kaiser, where there is one chaplain. What is he going to do? And we talked about it because I talked about the film with him. For him, he's like, I don't have a problem with it. Yeah, he just does whatever it is he needs to do, and he says that he's okay with it. But I believe we need to have space for that embracing of I can't do it without being judged, without being fear, am I going to lose my job? With this particular person, I think it was the Assemblies of God. So then it was all of this conversation about the Assemblies of God and what do they do? And what does that mean? And how come? And I forget specifically because you guys, I was going in and out of stuff under the influence of stuff also as I'm watching these movies. But there was, I believe, one person that kind of stood up and kind of rallied the troops and the organization and got everybody together and helped people to be able to understand what was happening and came up with a resolution, and it worked for everyone. The employee, was not affected by it, was okay. I mean, it was just a really good ending, learning experience, growth opportunity for everyone involved, the different chaplains, the staff, and I just thought that was great. And that was just one particular setting. I'm sure I have it written down here somewhere. I got notes all over the place. I don't remember which particular setting it was in, but in every setting, it was something unique. to that setting assigned to the chaplain or ascribed to the chaplain or that the chaplain had to do. And it just, for me, it just said, you can't just say I'm gonna be a chaplain. You have to say, what is my calling? What is it? What am I passionate about? What is it I want to do? What environment do I want to work in? I can't, and I believe it's easy for me because I'm retired. I'm not trying to make any money. I'm retired already. But you can't just take an assignment or a job based on how much it pays or how it looks or if you really want to be provide spiritual care or whatever that pastoral care, whatever it is to that um, group that you're supposed to serve, it's a calling. And I just think for me anyway, I would need to do a little more research. I would need to know what is the goal of the company? Like, how does the company see, the chaplain? Like, what is my role to you? What are you expecting from me? And I don't remember if it was the Tyson Chicken place or who it was. One of the companies was, we want you to serve the employees. Period. The end. You tell us what it is you need to serve them. And I just thought that was just awesome. And especially for the employee. How awesome to have an employee who is so concerned about you that they're going to hire a whole team of people to devise a system that is going to be able to, even if you don't say anything, they're going to recognize that you may need to talk and they're going to call you in and give you an opportunity. Or they're going to have, group settings in place where you can just walk in and start speaking if you want. So I love the Jamie Foxx. That was like whoa, one of the best. But that Chaplin's documentary was the one I believe that has changed my life as far as how I view the chaplains. And I just see myself reflecting back on it and reflecting back. And I know I'm probably going to watch it a couple more times because of the different, the variety of environments that are offered to chaplains. And then, depending on the environment, Alice, you can call it pastoral care. Because
Well,
that is
Audrey's finished now.
that's what they need. So I just think yeah. So I did not expect the film assignment to be as enlightening and exciting and educational. I just feel like I gained so much more wisdom and maturity when it comes to not just the chaplains, but the coming alongside. You come alongside anything. It whatever it is, just come alongside it. So I enjoyed the assignment. Thank you so much.
Again, I would also encourage you to share your reflections with your colleagues. Well, Alfredo,
I have time.
yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I choose the same as Andrew. I choose the Solace and the documentary, and I love the documentary. I just embrace it. Paul, the chaplain for the army, when he talk about the way he has to be in the middle of the field, okay? When a lot of soldiers came dead, the dynamic, the heart that he has to have there to see, to be with them. I mean, what's amazing? All the chaplains have their own dynamic. And I was surprised to see a chaplains in the places where I never imagined they have it. You know, like at the race, NASCAR has chaplains and they have service before the race. And some of the races as the chaplain to pray before everything. They get with the families in the room and have a special service. And the Hollywood, they have chaplains in Hollywood. And I mean, and the company, the people is killing chickens and the chaplain is behind them. As you say, what is the problem to killing chickens? And they care about it. So the vision, the chaplain in the jail, that lady as a Buddhist lady, it's amazing. You know how she has the ability to see things. Like she saw the Christian people need something for them, and she helped them to build a worship team and have their own service. Not even that, she has the courage to reach the community and follow up with the inmates when they are released. Every one of them has their own ability, their own calling. But what amazed me is one thing most of the chaplain has, like the one who played the role as a chaplain in the army, NASCAR, Hollywood, or others. What other? Well, my point is this: most of the chaplains, okay, like the soldier were a soldier. The NASCAR was a pilot. The Hollywood was an artist. Each of the chaplain has their own preparation in the war. And they got calling from that. And I made reflection on my life and I see what got me, what I have to going through in my life in a different settings and a different scenarios. And I find out that God prepared me through all those things to be in the hospital. Because I can feel compassion for each of them. Because I've gone through for a lot of things. I've been in bed for 8 months. Somebody tried to kill me. I have a stab in my chest, and I spent an emergency like in 4 days with nobody know me. I've been in assault. I've been in a gangs. I was a drunkard. I have a couple of injuries. I mean, you name it, I've been through. And I find myself in the hospital. And I saw the soldier service as a chaplain in the field because they know what happened there. They know the need of the people. And that was something that made me reflection in my calling and in the place I'm in. And now I know why the people look at me like, what are you doing? Because you connect with the people right away. You don't have any problems to connect with the people. And now I know why. Because I've gone through that. I understand them. I living without any food for days in my table because when I got 18 years old, I came to USA by myself, suffering. I know the feeling of the immigrant. I know what they feel, what they're going through. And what's amazing, the chicken company has 120 chaplains in their payroll. 120 chaplains. It's not once, it's not two, it's 120. The whole corporation. And now I know the Reverend Donna told me, Apple has also chaplains, and that Google has also chaplains. But then the documentary used by this company And you know what? For me, was a really, really blessing, challenge, encouraged me, you know, and I can respect any other chaplains in a different way. The chaplain who has a calling in the army, he was prepared for God to be there. The chaplain who is just chaplain in the race in the NASCAR, God prepared him to in the arena. The Hollywood, God prepared him in the arena. Each of them was prepared for the arena. And nobody can do better than you and the place you are because God put you there and you already being prepared by God to do your job and your assignment. That's the beauty of this calling. That we are not there because we want it. We are there because God calling us and God prepare us for doing what we are doing right now. And I see the common sense or common calling in all the chaplains in the movie. As you see, the chaplains for the Victory Irish for Formation 1, they are working with the gangs members who build the church, a gang member. And, and the Solis is a different dynamic, beautiful dynamic. I can see a chaplain in hospice, a long-term period chaplain, you know, with the ups and downs of the chaplaincy, the frustrations, you know, how he overcome that, the trauma on the person, you know. Harley, I think, what's his name? Ayers, Ayers and Lopez. So it's another dynamic. But what touches me was the chaplaincy documentary. I can say challenge me to be the best chaplain I can be. To do not stop learning. I'm so passionate everything I say it.
Thank you for sharing.
I just talking about a movie, imagine.
Actually, you're talking about a calling.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Alfredo, you just made me feel awesome. So thanks for that.
Ah,
Thank you, Kate.
well, again, I encourage you all to share your reflections with one another. They were all beautiful, and I was clear that it was a fruitful assignment for you and that you took it seriously. So thank you all for doing that. Alice, did you have any other comments you wanted to make?
Yeah, I was looking at my notes there. There was this phrase that I'd forgotten when I was writing actually at the airport. My uh my assignment on this. I forgot this, but I think it really pertains when I think about Kate's verbatim for in the prison and all, and the verbatims you write about the prison experience, and also Audrey had already, it's her experience, her entire life experience. This last statement that Sister Ellen made, I found it in my notes, and I'm like, it's what really always remember. It was one of those touching ones when I sent my assignment, and I'm like, why? I wanted to include this statement, but is that what she says? I want the last face you see in this world to be the face of love. When she held the hand of Matthew in this execution chamber, and how much, in places where you are just dehumanized completely, like the prison that both Audrey and Kate are working, and And Kate, particularly your verbatims, when you encountered these experiences, you know, I cannot help but just think about that. It's not yes, the last face you see in this world, but the face you see in front of you to be the face of love. That to me is a very powerful statement that is the heart of chaplaincy. Where people are dehumanized, there's a face of love that sits in front of there. And the prison for me, again, for those of you who have worked in that space, is that the most place of dehumanization, erasure, people not sin, but the face you see, the face of love. So I wanted to record that because it really is a powerful statement. Yeah. I cannot imagine for Audrey all the many years you work in that space, and Kate, for you, it's like your daily experience where you, in the face of absence of love, that in this place where people are chained and locked, but every time you sit there with them, there's a face of love in front of them that is non-judgmental face of love, which is one characteristic also of the film. This non-judgmental attitude of Sister Ellen. So it draws one to the life experience of colleagues or peers in this group. It's not just Sister Ellen, but it comes back to what both of you have spent your whole life doing. That being that face of love. It's not the last face, but that face of love, non-judgmental face of love, that in those spaces is so important. So you see the imago Dei that in this person, right? Even if society has just anyway. So I found the phrase. I said I have to share it. It's like if yeah.
That was beautiful, Alice. And yeah, I can tell you that was one of the things that got me through to the end to my career is just that for me, I just wanted somebody to see the God, in me. So don't whatever else you see is whatever you see. And when I would remind myself of that, I can just go in, speak hello. If they don't, that's fine. Move on over, to the next person. But I had to come up with what is it that I'm wanting to share and that I am satisfied and okay if that's all they get. And so that was, I didn't call it the face of love, but I just remember saying the love of God or just something that wasn't, me. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you all. Thank you. And thank you, Kate, for your leadership tonight in helping us figure out how we wanted to spend this time together. And go do a spiritual care practice and don't come back till next week. I appreciate you all. Good night.
Okay, you're gonna send me the 2 questions, right?
Yeah.
I sent them already.
All right,
Hey,
perfect.
please,
Did
Donna, can you tell us how your trip
Did
was?
anybody else get them? Because I sent them to everybody.
I got them.
What?
I don't know. I guess I have to look again because I looked and I didn't see anything.
You didn't see anything? Not even the, you know what? I may be using the wrong email for you.
It's the title is Board Certification Didactic Instructions for December 3rd, and she sent it just after 10 this morning.
Look
Yeah, I
at
got
the
it.
look at the email that I have address for Audrey.
Yeah.
I
Let me
might
see. It is King Audrey 38 at yahoo.com.
That is the correct email.
okay. And Alfredo, do you
Last
now
time,
see?
where did it go last time? Seemed like it went somewhere else last time.
It did. I thought maybe that's why I thought I had the wrong one. Alfredo, do you now see it?
No, the last one I have it
Okay.
was the
Kate,
one
do
you
you see
sent me with the
Alfredo on there?
no.
Yeah, you know the only thing Alfredo is it pastor.alfredo with an S at the end at yahoo.com. Yeah,
Yes.
that's on there.
Oh.
I see it. I see all y'all.
At what time? 10 o'clock?
Roughly 10 in the morning today.
Mm.
And
Where
then
did
she
you
sent the
learn?
moral injury just before 8 a.m. today.
Where did you learn your?
So the moral injury is first, right?
Oh, let me look at the
Yes. The
Yeah, moral
injury
injury came first, and then board certification came second.
No, I don't receive the second one yet.
Here, let me
Okay.
try and forward it to you. You
Okay,
the board
thank you.
certification.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead and forward it to both.
Try again. Okay, I'll do it right now.
Thank you.
Donna, please. How was Africa?
Life changing.
Amen.
Life changing.
I'll invite you to South Africa.
I did get to worship at a local church and spend some time with the family, and it was life changing. I'm not the same.
I got an
Mhm.
invitation to be
You
there
got it?
for 3 weeks.
South Africa?
Yes,
Oh,
ma'am.
that's wonderful.
Where?
I just want to confirm the days and they are willing to receive me.
I'll be there in December. That's why I was asking.
Do you know when, Alfredo?
I don't know, I have to make the plans with my wife, but we're
Oh,
planning to
okay.
go next year
Oh, nice.
because I have the invitations and last year. And I say, I can't those 2 years. I have to be focused in CPE and all the chaplaincy. But my goal is next year start to use making my calling as a evangelist.
That's awesome. I'm going to West Africa next year.
Cameroon?
Cameroon, Ghana, they named 2 other places I should go.
You know Cameroon is my country, right?
Yes, ma'am. What?
How,
No.
how
Are
will you
you
go there?
serious?
How will you go there without me?
Oh, I'm gonna send a pictures.
All right, everybody's gotten all the
Okay,
emails.
okay,
Good
I got
night.
it.
Yes, thank you, Kate.
Good
I
I
got
got
night.
it.
it. I'm gonna be the question number 4 and 5, right? That's
Good
it.
night.
Yes.
All right,
December,
thank you.
you got it? Okay.
Yes, I got it.